Everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting Algebra 1 class. Today we are going to get started in chapter number 10. This chapter is going to be a really good break for some of you. Some of you need a break from algebra. This chapter, chapter 10, is about statistics and probability. It really doesn't have anything to do with algebra. It's almost like you take this chapter and just like insert it into the middle of the book, and it doesn't have anything to do with anything else that you've been doing. So some of you, that is very welcome. You need a little bit of a break, so I hope you enjoy this chapter. All right, let's go ahead and get started. It is on page 338 in your books, 338. All right, bar graphs. Let's talk about some different things before we jump into bar graphs, just about statistics in general. Let's define what statistics are. Statistics are the study of how to collect, organize, analyze, and interpret numerical information. In other words, statistics only deal with numbers. Okay, so how many of something, how much, things like that. And they collect them in ways that help to organize them, so that people can analyze them. What does analyze mean? So that they can kind of look specifically at it and try to determine what all these numbers mean and how they can help them. And then interpret. For what does that mean? Well, it's kind of the same thing, but interpret means more like for the future, be able to use these, and be able to figure things out about patterns, about other things that can then help them into the future to make good decisions for maybe their business or maybe their sports team, or just all kinds of different applications to statistics. Two kinds of statistics that we'll be talking about. For the most part in this book, we'll be talking about the first one. It's called descriptive statistics. Okay, this one right here. Descriptive statistics. And descriptive statistics are statistics that describes the data. It tells information about it. Okay, it gives you information, and it's just describing the information that you're looking at. And we use all kinds of different things to do that. We use bar charts and circle graphs, and we use line graphs, and you name it. Basically, if you've heard of it, that's probably a descriptive stat. It's a way to look at descriptives, because what we've heard of at this point in our lives and what we've looked at typically are going to be the descriptive methods of statistics. There is a second one that, as you get higher and higher into math, and as you get into the real world, as far as like working for a business or something, you're going to see this more. It's called inferential stats. Okay, inferential. What does it mean to infer something? Well, it means to kind of suggest something, or kind of from what somebody says, you figure something out. And it allows readers to draw their own conclusions about the numbers. What does that mean? So, for instance, if you're working in a grocery store or something and you want to figure out how many cookies to order, okay, what you would do is you would look at some statistics, but you would make some inferences about how many in the future. It's a conclusion that you're drawing. And so statistics that help you draw conclusions or help you come up with solutions, those would be called inferential. We won't deal with those too much in this book. In next book, in Algebra 2 and other places in business math and things, you will get more into inferential statistics. All right, the first graph that I want to talk about is what's called the bar graph, and that's going to be this lesson, 10.1, the bar graph. What is the bar graph? The bar graph uses vertical and horizontal bars to show data, to illustrate the data. What it does is it makes it easy for the readers to understand. Now, everybody has seen a bar graph at some point. You might not have known you were looking at a bar graph, but you've seen a bar graph, I promise you. They are all over the place. They are on TV, they are in newspapers and on the internet, and in stores on flyers and news, little circular things that they have for like ads and different things like that. They're everywhere. You will see them everywhere. Okay. Now, once we start talking about it, you're gonna realize them. We're gonna be like, hey, there's a bar graph, and but you've seen them. Let's take a look at this one right here. All right, this is the name or the title for this one is Plays in Riverside Shakespeare. Okay. Plays in the Riverside Shakespeare. That's the name. That's the chart title or just the title, bar graph title, whatever you want to call it. Okay. So these are some key components to the graph. That's the chart title. This is in your book on page number 338, by the way, if you want to look in there. Then we have, obviously, you have to have the bars, right? The bars are key to a bar graph. If you don't have bars, then you don't have a bar graph. All right, and so let's talk about those bars. Those bars, in this case, are what's called vertical bars, okay, because they're going up and down. You can also have horizontal bars, okay? So we could have something like this. And you could even have vertical and horizontal in the same graph, okay? But for the most part, it's either they choose one or the other. It's vertical or horizontal. Okay, so this one's vertical. And now what they're doing is over here, they have this labeled with the number of plays. The number of plays would go from 0 to 14, and that's called the scale. Okay, the amount going up and down is the scale. And then on the bottom here, you have these are called categories. So comedies, tragedies, histories, romances, these are the different categories of plays that Shakespeare had. So those are labels. This is interesting. This is the 0 line right here. What is the 0 line? Where you start, that's the 0 line. Okay, so the base, the starting point is the 0 line. And then let's see, the axis title. And this is basically there's two axes right here. There's this axis, and this is the type of plays. And then I showed you the other one already, the number of plays. Those are the two titles for the axes. What is an axis? Okay, the axis is, you might remember on the Cartesian plane, we had the x-axis and we had the y-axis. What does that mean? That's like the line of origin. Okay, the axis is the line of origin. So where are these starting? Well, they start on the 0 line, the line of origin. Where do these ones start? Right here with the by the number of plays. So these little lines right here that you see, these little blue lines, okay, these are called grid lines. Now, some bar graphs will have what's called a major grid line and minor grid lines. Let me show you which ones would be major in this one. So 10 would be a major grid line. Why? Because it's 10. 0 would be a major grid line. And then all the other ones would be minor grid lines. And if you had another one, like let's say it went up to 20, you could have another major grid line at 20. And then you'd have another major grid line at 30. And then another major grid line at 40. So what are the major grid lines? They are the big numbers, okay, the key numbers. So maybe you have one at 5, 10, 15, 20, something like that. That would be called the major grid lines. Okay. I think that's about all there. Go ahead and turn the page in your book to page 339. Here is where I was talking about two different types of bar graphs. This is the same information. They haven't changed the information here. But here you have horizontal. Okay? In other words, they're going horizontally. In this one over here on the right, that one is back to vertical. So vertical is standing up, horizontal is laying down. Go ahead and look down at the bottom of that page. You're going to see the word trend. Trend. What is a trend? Well, a trend is like a pattern. Okay, like if you see something that happens over and over, or if you see something that's going up, or if you see something that's going down, What you're seeing is you're seeing a trend. You're seeing a pattern. It's a pattern in the data. All right, let's look at this bar graph. This is a vertical bar graph down here at the bottom of the page. It says vehicles sold in a year. Now, what this is this is a dealership, any random dealership that's selling vehicles. And what they show you is how many vehicles they sell in each month. So look, January, they sold 40 vehicles. Okay, right there. It goes up to 40, and so they sold 40 in January. Now, these would be called major grid lines. This one does not have any minor grid lines. We kind of have to use our imagination right here. Let me take just this moment to talk about this. Bar graphs, any graphs, circle graphs, you name it, line graphs. The point of the line graph or the point of the bar graph or any graph is not to give you exact information. Okay? If they want you to have exact information, they'll just give you the numbers. So what is it? What is the point of the bar graph? What is the point of any graph? The point of any graph is to get you to see the big picture. It's get you to see the data, the information, in a way that you can understand it well, in a way that you can see what's happening, and in a way that you can just kind of grab onto. Okay, sometimes numbers are a little hard to grab onto because you're like looking at them and a little confusing and you don't really get it all. But when you put it into a picture, it's very easy to kind of comprehend everything that's going on. All right, so for example, in February, we end right there. How many vehicles did we sell in February? Well, if we extend that line over, it looks like we sold a few more than 30, maybe 32. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's not important. How many we sold in February is not important. What's important here? What's important is we sold less than January, and we sold somewhere around 30. That's what's important. March, you can see we sold a few more in March. It's going back up, maybe 35. April, we're back up over 40. I don't know, 45 maybe. Getting close to 50, a little bit over 50. Now we're in July, we're over 60. Do you see a pattern forming? Do you see a trend? Okay, I'm going to show it to you in just a second, but let's keep going. In August, we're up over 70. In September, we're at 80. In October, we are close to 90. Look at this pattern right here. What's the pattern? From February to October, sales went up. Now look what happens in November and December. They trend back down. Okay, so this line right here is a trend line. The trend line is showing you what the data is doing, and we can see, okay, so at this dealership, we see that we are all the way from February on until October, we're going up. And then in November, December, January, and then to February, we're dropping. See, if you look at this drop continues over here. So the next year, like if you put these two over here on the next year, those would be dropping as well. So you would see from October to February, we drop, and then from March to October, we rise. Okay, those are trends. All right. Next, let's look at segmented bar graphs. All right, here's some segmented bar graphs. Here's what they are. They give you one bar. Okay, let's take January, for example. So they give you one bar, and then if you look over here, there's what's called the legend. The legend tells you what's going on in the graph, and so minivans are green, trucks are orange, and cars are blue. Okay, so each one of those, it's the same. So now let me kind of blow this up just a little bit so you can see this. So let's look specifically at January. Now this one has major grid lines and it has these minor grid lines. Okay. The major grid lines are on the 10s and the minor grid lines look like they're on the 2s. So you have 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40. Another major grid line. That's how that works. And so it'll help us read it. So here's the question. How many cars did we sell? Well, It goes to right there. And actually, that looks like it's between two minor grid lines. Okay, so we sold 10, 12, 14, 15 cars. Okay. Now, here's an interesting question about this next one. Um, how many trucks did we sell? Well, the trucks start at 15, so you had to do a little subtraction here. So they start at 15. So, and where do they end? Okay, the trucks look like they end at 32. So you do 15, 32 minus 15 would give us our answer here. So that would be 17 trucks. And then to find out how many minivans we sold, we would come up here. And that would start there at 32. And then it would go till 40. So we would subtract there, and we would get 8. So minivans, we sold 8 minivans. Okay, so that's how those work, those segmented bar graphs. And that was on page number 340 at the bottom of the page, 340. If you look over at page 341, the next section there that we'll talk about real quick here is clustered bar graphs. What is a clustered bar graph? Well, it's the same information. Okay, so the same information that we just had. Do you remember the answers there? 15, 17, and 8. Okay, so it was 15, 17, and 8. And this was cars, trucks, and minivans. So now we're going to look at this one, and we're going to get the same information, but we're going to see it a little bit differently. And this is called clustered. So if we go over here and we look at this one, look at this one is the minivan. The green one was the minivan, and look where it is. Okay, it looks like it's at about 8, which is what we said. If we go to the trucks, it's right here, and that looks like it's at about 17, and that's what we said. And then if we go to the cars, it's at 15, and again, that's what we said on the cars. This is just a different way to write the same information. So sometimes you might see it in clustered. I think I see more of this style, the cluster, than I do this style, the segmented. So, but you're going to see both of them, so you need to know how to read both of them. Okay, and real quick here, going back to the cars sold, let's answer just a couple of random questions about this. This would be on page 342, actually, yeah, 342 at the bottom of the page. Here's an interesting question. What is the percent of change in car sales from June to July? So if you go to the next page, we're going to do percent of change. Here's the formula that you need to know for percent of change. You need to know final minus original. And that's going to be over original. Okay, so what does that mean? So we're going here and we're going to answer the question. This is the question we want to answer. What is the percent change from June to July? So we're doing these 2 months right here. Okay, so what we need to know is how many were sold in June and how many were sold in July. So how many were sold in June? Looks like we had 24 in June, and then it looks like we had 25, 26, 27 in July. Okay, so let's go down here to this. So what was our final? July is our final. How many did we sell in July? 27. So you'd have 27 minus, what's the original? June was the original. 24 over 24. Just go ahead and do that math now. 27 minus 24 is 3 over 24. You'd come over to your calculator and just do that. So 24, 3 divided by 24, 3 divided by 24 equals, and we're going to have a 12.5 change, 12.5%. It was 0.125, but I moved the decimal point 2 places for the percent, okay? So the percent change between June and July was 12%. So that was a 12% increase because we went up. June was lower, July was higher, so we went up. So this would be a positive. This would be an increase, not a decrease. All right, so that's important to make sure that you know that little formula right there. Final minus original over original. And then just do the math there, and you'll be able to come up with those. All righty, well, that's all I have for you today. I hope you learned something. If you missed anything, make sure you slide it back there and figure it out. Work on some of these practice problems there. Try some of these graphs. Try reading them and determining and figuring out the percentage change and things like that. All right, we'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.